Welcome to Whatsoever More or Less. My name is Jason. I'm going to see if I can make an audio recording today while I'm supervising the feeding of my livestock guardians and my goats. One of these days I will create a separate gate, and that will be soon, and then these videos will start getting done in a more organized fashion. But until then, this is where my extra time goes. All right, so here it goes. This is from the talk Fundamentals of Our Constitutions, given by Dallin H Oakes. I believe it was 2010, 2011, something like that, in the Tabernacle. It was a Utah Constitution event. And so he was speaking to a lot of members of the church, but it wasn't strictly a members of the church thing. And I find this to be more direct, and you cannot find this on YouTube, at least I couldn't find it, more direct than anything he said in Defending Our Divinely Inspired Constitution, which was to an entire church audience, or the University of Virginia lecture, or his BYU lecture. Back then, though, he was still kind of new. When he was gave the talk Freedom and Free Agency. This is the most powerful. So this is Citizen Responsibilities. Okay, so here it goes. I'm just going to read it. I conclude with some suggestions about our responsibilities as citizens. We have a great constitution whose fundamental principles many believe to be divinely inspired. Therefore, what? I will suggest 5 responsibilities that I believe are appropriate for all citizens, whatever their religious or philosophical persuasion. Okay? 1. Understand the Constitution. All citizens should be familiar with its great fundamentals: the sovereignty of the people, the structure of federalism that divides powers between the states and the federal government, the individual guarantees in the Bill of Rights, and the principle of separation of powers among the various branches of governments. We should take alarm at and consider how to oppose any action that would infringe these fundamentals. 2. Support the law. All citizens should give law-abiding support to their national, state, and local governments. My religious faith expresses this principle in an official declaration of belief. We believe that governments were instituted of God for the benefit of man, and that He holds men accountable for their acts in relation to them. We believe that all men are bound to sustain and uphold the respective governments in which they reside. That's from Doctrine and Covenants 134, verses 105. Then, number 3, practice civic virtue. Those who enjoy the blessings of liberty under our national and state constitutions should promote morality, and they should practice what the Founding Fathers called civic virtue. John Adams, the second President of the United States, declared, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." James Madison argued in the Federalist Papers that Republican government presupposes the exercise of these qualities of virtue in a higher degree than any other form. Citizens should also be practitioners of civic virtue in their conduct towards our states and our nation. They should obey the laws. They should be ever willing to fulfill duties of citizenship. This includes compulsory duties like military service and numerous voluntary actions they must take if they are to preserve the principle of limited government through citizen self-reliance. Through citizen self-reliance. I just now caught that. If they are to preserve the principle of limited government through citizen self-reliance. There you go, you guys. For example, since U.S. citizens value the right of trial by jury, they must be willing to serve on juries, even those involving unsavory subject matter. Then there is the matter of voting. I have been alarmed at the steady decline of voter turnout in many parts of the United States, including Utah. Voting is a fundamental right and responsibility that must not be taken for granted. Political participation can be inconvenient. It requires sacrifices of time and resources, but it is essential to our democratic society. And may I recommend, it takes sacrifice to get to know the whole Constitution, but just do it. It's so worth it. Without substantial voter turnout, the people abrogate the great fundamental of popular sovereignty. It is also part of civic virtue to be moral in our conduct toward all people. We believe with the author of Proverbs that righteousness exalteth to the nation, but sin is a reproach to any of the people. The personal righteousness of citizens will strengthen a nation more than the force of its arms. Very cool, very cool. Number 4, maintain civility in political discourse. If representative government is to function effectively under our constitutions, we must have civility in political discourse. We currently have an excess of ugliness and contentiousness in our communications on many political issues. I don't need to give any examples. We have all been exposed to it, and some of us have occasionally been part of it. We all bear some responsibility for the current political polarization and the stalemates that have resulted from it. We ought to tone it down. Meaningful debate and discussion about policies, programs, and procedures are essential to a democratic society, but contentiousness for the sake of division is bad for democracy. It is bad for law observance. It is bad for neighborly relations, and it is particularly destructive as an example for the rising generation who, if not taught better, will perpetuate and magnify its ugliness and divisiveness for generations to come. I have said this again and again. We need to turn our hearts to our founding fathers and also to our children, right? So we are responsible for what the legacy we leave them with, okay? So it's just another application of a famous quote from Malachi there, okay? A year ago, our church published a statement called the Mormon Ethic of Civility. I quote from that statement: the church views with concern the politics of fear and rhetorical extremism that renders civil discussion impossible. Anyone who tells you the Constitution won't be saved, it's too late because of this and that and the other thing, I just don't even know how to work with them, okay? There's too many other prophets like President Oakes who have taught us quite the opposite, and that if the United States falls apart, we still need this knowledge because we will continue to live the Constitution wherever we are. So I don't know how to work with people like that. I really don't. It doesn't square with the words of the prophets. You might find an obscure quote from one apostle or one prophet, but there should be a big picture. Okay, continuing on. The church views with concern the politics of rhetorical fear. Okay, our democratic systems should facilitate kinder and more reasoned exchanges among fellow Americans than we are now seeing. Our president, Thomas S. Monson, has said, when a spirit of goodwill prompts our thinking and when unified efforts goes to work on a common problem, the results can be most gratifying. Okay, now his fifth principle. So that was a long principle, his maintain civility. And again, the talk is called Fundamentals of Our Constitutions. It's on the church website. Okay. 5, promote patriotism. Finally, the single word that best describes a fulfillment of responsibilities of citizenship is patriotism. Citizens should be patriotic. My favorite prescription for patriotism is that of Adlai Stevenson, the Illinois governor, who was twice the Democratic candidate for president. What do we mean by patriotism? Patriotism in the context of our times. A patriotism that puts country ahead of self. A patriotism which is not short, frenzied outbursts of emotion, but the tranquil and steady dedication of a lifetime. Okay, President Oakes, he's our prophet. This was, 15 years ago or whatever. But 5 years ago he gave Defending Our Divinely Inspired Constitution. He also gave that talk at BYU. He also, shortly before that, gave the talk Love Your Enemies. He gave the talk at University of Virginia for the Joseph Smith thing where it's, what's it called, going forward with non-discrimination and peace or something like that. All those talks are useful. This is the most direct talk I've found from him yet, and it was given at a Utah Constitution Day event at the Tabernacle. So these are his exhortations. Again, here, let me give you the full list and maybe a little bit more of my testimony or commentary. We'll see what I feel inspired to say. So citizens' responsibilities are: 1, understand the Constitution. He says, be alarmed whenever you recognize violations or infringements, and start working to figure out how to correct it. Okay, that's a very hopeful attitude. Support the law. Practice civic virtue. Okay, so it's a virtuous people. At some point in there, what was the fun one I just found? Preserve the principle of limited government through self-reliance, right? Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. And then maintain stability in political discourse. Okay, there's nothing more uncivil, if you ask me, than those who are saying it's too late to save the Constitution. Why are you even focusing on that? And I really hate to say that, because some of the lecturers who have said that recently have done some nice lectures that inspired me in the past, but I'm not, just because you've done a few nice lectures, I'm not going to suddenly start treating you like you're a substitute for the prophet of the apostles. It's not happening. Okay. And then the fifth one is promote patriotism. Okay. When you think of patriotism, I want to give an example here. People complain about 3 things with Thomas Jefferson, who I say is the greatest president we ever had, right? They say, oh, the Louisiana Purchase it was unconstitutional. Well, he stressed that it was unconstitutional. He stressed out about it. But really, honestly, the moment that Napoleon made it required, he made it necessary and proper. And to top it off, it was part of the standard application of treaty power in that generation, which the treaty powers are not enumerated in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 2. It is just assumed that treaties will continue to do the standard things that treaties do, which is things like exchanges of land. That was not unconstitutional. And I'm about to get to the big one. The other one was the... okay, well, I'm just going to go to the big one right now, the Embargo Act. I find the complaints about the Embargo Act to be very unpatriotic, okay? What Jefferson was trying to do and Congress was trying to do, they had the power to regulate commerce, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. And at that time, there was a war going on between France and England. They didn't want to get us caught up in it. And so they said, let's not do it. Let's not let people even go over there for commerce purposes. Commerce with Europe is temporarily cut off, you guys. You guys are going to have to figure out how to make it work inside the borders of the United States. It was very doable, but a lot of people complain, oh, they hurt our economy. There is nothing in the Constitution that guarantees a thriving economy, that guarantees that people will have all of their necessities of life, if they're poor people or something like that, redistribution of wealth, things like that. It's just not there. Instead, what is there is guarantees of an honest set of economical things, weights, measures, whose property is whose, all that kind of stuff, and then protection against getting caught up in these wars and what have you. So yes, maybe the economy got hurt. You know how many people died from that, from the Embargo Act? None. Okay. And I know there's one other thing that people like to level against Thomas Jefferson, that as it was unconstitutional. What a hypocrite he was, because he was such a hardcore constructionist. And you got to remember, he was the third president of the United States. He and Madison, I think, were perfecting the office of the president at that point. A lot of people say Jackson did. I think Jackson ruined it, but I haven't studied him enough, but that's where my leanings are headed. So the Embargo Act, the Louisiana Purchase. Oh, and there's one more big one that people whine about, and I completely forget what it was. But look, patriotism says we're going to be a self-sufficient enough people in the first place. Self-reliance, as President Oakes has said here, that if the government needs us to just be able to operate within our own homestead and take care of ourselves for a while, we're prepared for that. Okay? And that's, I think that's something that occurs to me. I'm really quite annoyed at the whining over the Embargo Act. It's inappropriate. The Embargo Act, for all I can tell, was an inspired idea, and people just didn't step up to the plate patriotically for it. And so, anyhow, that's my thoughts. The Constitution is inspired. It will be safe. This is our living prophet. Just 15 years ago, 5 years ago, look up his, he gave a series of talks, whole series of talks on this. And anyhow, that's it. Thanks for listening, you guys.